Alright, so this video right here is just going to be a little bit info about the different programs when it comes to inking. A lot of y'all who've been following me know I've been for like the past 3 years straight been trying to find a good program to ink in. So I've messed with Photoshop, I've messed with Manga Studio, I've messed with Sketchbook Pro. So I'm working with a Mac. I can't work with Painter Tool Sci or whatever it is. I heard that's a pretty good program for PC users. I haven't messed with Painter yet either. I heard it's pretty good, but I'm just gonna show y'all the differences between the three that I've been working with, and you can make a decision based on what I'm saying, the options that you see, which one might be better for you though. First I'm gonna start off with Sketchbook Pro. Basically, Sketchbook Pro's interface is insanely simple. It's limited in what it can do in comparison to Photoshop and Manga Studio, but I mean, as far as just ease of use, you can't really beat it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like, they don't even really have an instruction manual just because they assume that you should be able to figure out everything. As far as the different brushes go, they have different options for different tools. Like, you got a pencil, airbrush, felt tip marker, ink pen, brush, eraser, all that stuff, Copic markers, all that stuff. So pretty good. Some of the tools are okay. Some of them are better than others, of course. For instance, the pencil doesn't really look like a pencil to me, so I can't. I use that for sketching a little bit. The airbrush is it works just like a regular airbrush, soft brush. Stuff like the paintbrush though, I'm not really a big fan of. So I don't really tend to use that. But as far as the inking goes, I made a custom brush for Sketchbook Pro, which you can basically do by going to the option setting, and I'm using a Sketchbook Pro 6, I believe. So you just go to the top settings, basic, and then go to create a brush, which new brush right here. This is the brush that I created along with the help of Wes McTizick, one of my UGF partners. He gave me some tips on his brush. I kind of just did a few tweaks on it, but basically what it is the heavy pen pressure in comparison to the light pressure, and the heavy pen pressure basically changes as you scale up on a brush, which I shouldn't be doing without having the settings set up, but it changes in comparison. You can change the opacity, the rotation of the brush and everything like that. So basically it's similar to Photoshop, where I have the lighter the pressure, the thinner the tip. The more pressure, the thicker the tip. Alright, so, and it's pretty clean. What I'm saying? I really liked it a lot better than Photoshop because it was a little bit more fluid as far as the lines go. But the real reason I used it was because of this. Basically, if you're using an Intuos or a Bamboo, you're going to tend to struggle with long strokes. You can't really get, really even lines. On this drawing particular of Kwame, my rendition of Kwame from Captain Planet, it's a lot of sketchy lines, so it doesn't really matter. But if you got like a really long line, it's really hard to kind of get that smoothness. So Sketchbook Pro added this thing called Steady Stroke, which you can see in my toolbar right here. This is the regular stroke, this is the Steady Stroke, and I love this bad boy. Basically, what you do is what it does, I should say, is basically it creates this lasso, which allows you to kind of direct where you want your brush to go before it gets there. so you can kind of control it, you know. And I really like that, you know, just because it just made things a lot easier. I wish Photoshop would add this. They probably won't, but you know, it makes it a lot easier for people who don't have a Cintiq, you know, just using a regular graphic tablet. And if you double click, you know, you can adjust how long the lasso is. So less, it's a shorter lasso. So you can get that for like really smooth, for really small curves and lines, and then more is the longer time period before it gets there. So you can control that for really long lines. And I really like that as far as the inking goes for this program. It also has rulers, which Photoshop sort of has. You can kind of do it with the pen tool, but it's not as dope as this right here. Basically what you can do is you can set up a ruler and, you know, switch it up, and you can trace along it, you know, and it'll stay in line with the ruler. You can also use French curve set, you know, so if you know you want to get certain lines, you can kind of change up the size of it, rotate it. They got different ones that you can use and stuff like that. So it's pretty dope. I like the program. I like the program a lot. The one thing that I do have a problem with though is the lag. For such a simple program, it really lags if you have anything else open. I thought it was just my computer, but I recommended it to one of my other homies, and he said he was having the same issue, and he uses a PC. I have 8 gigs of RAM in my computer, so I can have over 100 layers open in Photoshop. I see no issues, no slowdown, and I can be playing music, be on YouTube, you know, having other programs open, and I have no problems at all. So I don't know why that is. I usually have to close anything and everything else if I'm inking in Sketchbook Pro. But other than that, I really like the program. It does have its flaws though. Like if you kind of zoom in, you can kind of, I know I'm going overboard, but you can kind of see, you know, a little bit of the blurriness when it comes to the lines and stuff like that. They're not as crisp as I would like them to be sometimes. So I would say that's really the only issue with Sketchbook Pro. Other than that, it's a really good program, especially if you're just doing sketch work. I don't use it really for coloring. Yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to Sketchbook Pro. So really good for that. So next, I'm going to show you Photoshop and inking in that program. Now with Photoshop, I usually just use a regular hard round brush, set the opacity and the flow to 100, and I go to my brush settings and I'll change up a few things. First, I go to shape dynamics and I make sure that's checked on. Make sure the control is under pin pressure. I make sure the minimum diameter is at 0. Now there's a few different things you can do with your brush to achieve different effects, and I won't get into all of them because I mean it's a lot, but you know, this one in particular is just a regular, you know, ink brush. You know, you can ink your work with. Like I say, sometimes it's hard to get really smooth lines if you're trying to do certain things, you know, especially if you're not fast with it. Usually you gotta like stroke fast to get like a really smooth line. Also what you can do is you can add noise to the brush, and it kind of gives it a granular feel a little bit. I don't know if you can really see that, but it gives it a bit of a granular feel, you know what I'm saying? Like if I was doing this on white, you could probably see it, but you can see a little bit of spacing which kind of gives it a little bit of texture, almost kind of like you're inking on paper, or when you scan your line work in, you can kind of see like the grain from the paper coming through. You have to play around with that one a little bit. Size jitter, of course, that helps out with trying to emulate a little bit more of a natural medium feel to it. So it's a lot of different things you could do. But like I said, I don't really care for the fact that you can't get a really smooth line in Photoshop. Now, one of the tricks that I do for like really long lines is I use the pen tool. And what the pen tool does is it allows you to set up either long lines or long curves. So like for instance, let's say on his jacket I wanted to do the line work for this. You can set up a curvature line based on, you know, where the line is at. Once you get the line set up, you go to stroke path, and you got to make sure your brush is set to the right settings, like the right size and all that stuff like that, because it's basically going to go off the settings that you're using for the brush. And you can go to simulate pressure, which will basically it'll make each of your endpoints the lowest pressure setting. Or, you know, you can just go to non-simulate pressure. Well, actually, I think I did it without the simulate pressure last time. But you kind of see how this is the lowest pressure at each end, and then it gets thicker in the middle. So I do that for a lot of long lines that I'm not confident in using, you know, my hand to try to trace over, and it works. But the only thing I don't like about that sometimes is it kind of looks unnatural, because it just looks robotic sometimes. So you kind of got to mix it up a little bit here and there. So that's the deal with Photoshop when it comes to inking. It's still a good program. It's just, you know, if I had a Cintiq, I would probably rely on it a little bit more for inking, just because I don't really like switching back and forth between programs. I would prefer to just stay in one because I'm lazy. But hey, you know, I'd rather, you know, do things easy. But unfortunately, you know, Photoshop doesn't really choose to pay attention to that, which is cool. They got other programs for it, so I'm not tripping on it. Alright, next we got Manga Studio, which is, as y'all know, I've been talking about lately, pretty much the shit when it comes to inking. I played with 4 before. I didn't like the interface. As you see, this is the interface of Manga Studio. This shit is complicated as fuck. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's just way too much shit this program does, which I guess can be a good thing. It also can be a bad thing too. You know, you just got so many options. It gets crazy. For instance, this is the brush, and this is a brush pack that I downloaded from this cat named Friendon. He's a professional digital artist, and he created a lot of brushes for Manga Studio and Photoshop and all that stuff, and I bought it from him. And a lot of these are pretty good. I'm gonna show you guys what's up with this program and all the stuff that you can kind of do with it. Like, for instance, these are some of the brushes right here, and these are your settings. I'm gonna get back to these in a minute, but I'm just gonna show you how many freaking options you got with this brush. Of course, you got the regular brush size, you know, you got the ink, but then you can start nitpicking like how much paint it lays down, like, you know what I'm saying, like in the middle of a curve, you know what I'm saying. anti-aliasing, you know what I'm saying? That's the difference between if you got like kind of like a the kind of pixelated look versus a smooth look. Get into the brush size, the spraying effect, texture correction, and then this it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm telling you, it's a lot of options. I mean, it's cool, but sometimes you just want to create, you know, and not have so many options. So that's one of the things that slightly annoys me when it comes to Manga Studio. But this is where it excels at right here, is the fact that the lines come out really smooth, extremely smooth. Like I don't know if you guys can see that, you know, but that's you. I can't get this type of smoothness when it comes to stroke using the Intuos in Photoshop, and that's basically because of this thing called the stabilization. And what you can do is you can type in a setting that goes from 0 to 100. 0 being loosely based, 100 being the computer kind of compensates for your looseness. So for instance, let's go to 0. 0, press enter. You see I'm pretty much making kind of the same stroke that I made previously, but you can kind of see the wobbliness in the line, you know. Let's go new layer, and then I'm gonna go all the way to the other extreme and show you guys the difference. You see how the computer is compensating for the wobbliness in the line, so that really helps out a lot, and I really like that. So I don't have to use the lasso. It's not a CPU hog like Sketchbook Pro is, so I really like that. It's a really good program for inking. I haven't really fully inked any of my covers yet in this program, but I have just played around with it, and I mean, I like it a lot. The rulers are pretty cool. They kind of work similar to Sketchbook Pro, where you know you just create a line and then it inks on top of it. So that's pretty dope. The only thing about it is that it links to the layer. So you have to, if you want to turn it off, you have to turn it off in a layer. You don't just click off of it and it's off, you know. Which I guess can help, you know, if you set up your rulers for a particular page and you need to go back to it. That's helpful, but and then I'm gonna show y'all, even though that wasn't really part of this whole tutorial, I'm gonna show you one of the dopest the illest feature of this program. And I damn near was like crying like a little bitch fucking when I saw this, because this shit is just fucking clean as hell. It saves you so much time. So you got these perspective rulers, and basically what it does is, I'm gonna go 2-point just to keep it simple, but basically what it does is it keeps everything in line, you know what I'm saying? So you can't draw. So, you know, this is my horizon line and these are my vanishing points. So, you know, y'all should know about, you know, 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point perspective, you know. So just watch this. Just watch this. I'm telling you. This is clean. This is really clean right here. I might need to turn off Kwame just so y'all can see. Turn off Kwame. Alright. So look at this. I can draw anywhere. As long as I'm drawing along the path, it's going to keep everything in line. So, you know, it's keeping everything in line. So So you want to draw, you know, like a cityscape or whatever, that's clean. That is clean. Like Photoshop does not allow you to do that, you know. So you can set up whatever, you know, do your buildings, you know, set up, you know, the interior for your room and stuff like that without having to worry about, you know, trying to make sure you're drawing everything on point. It basically assists you in doing so, you know. And if you want to switch it up a little bit, you got to go to the object tool and, you know, move your lines and your tangents and all that stuff like that. And it lines up just right. So that's clean. I love that part of the program. But you know, all the programs have their pros and their cons. I'm liking Manga Studio. Won't use it for coloring. I'm just too adapted to Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop for a long time, so I don't think I'll ever switch off of that. I heard Manga Studio is pretty dope for coloring though, but I'm not even going to attempt to test that. I'll just be solely using it for inking. But yeah, other than that, you know, you guys can make a decision on what you guys want to use. I highly recommend Manga Studio though if you guys just have an Intuos or Bamboo. It just makes things a lot easier. I still got to play around with some of the brush settings, you know, because I don't really care to have a sharp tip for every stroke that I make, but you know, I got to play around with that. But other than that, it's a dope program. So y'all can test them out. I'll possibly put a link to, you know, saying some tutorials where you can learn about some other stuff and all that good stuff. But anyway, that's my little inking tutorial. More to come, blah blah blah, all that good stuff. Peace.